let me introduce myself. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Major Group for Children and Youth, but that's not my day job. My day job is that I'm a surgeon. I'm an ear, nose, and throat surgeon, and I teach surgery at the university. But I have a passion for sustainable development, which started many, many years ago, 2011. I learned about something called the Major Group for Children and Youth that was still forming. And I'll explain the history of the Major Group for Children and Youth in a second. And I was very passionate. I wanted to join, it was my first year of university, and I wanted to join political science, but there was the region where I come from. I'm from Egypt. The region was very unstable at the time, and political science sounded like a very bad option. My parents advised against it. So I decided to go with my original passion and get into med school. And, but I never forgot about my passion for advocacy and sustainable development. And then I joined the Major Group for Children and Youth in 2011, and I continued advocacy. I witnessed so many great things. I think we had a lot of bilateral conversations over the past couple of days on some of the achievements that I've witnessed, including the adoption of the sustainable development and how we worked on shaping the agenda. And actually, one of the goals that are on the agenda today are co-created with the Major Group for Children and Youth, which is reduced inequalities. That's, you know, one of the big fingerprints of the Major Group for Children and Youth during the negotiations of the Sustainable Development or the 2030 Agenda. But also outside the UN, because I believe in the voices of youth very much, I worked on creating something else similar to the Major Group for Children and Youth at the League of Arab States, which is an organization like the EU, but for Arab countries. Which the organization is called the Arab Youth Platform for Sustainable Development, which also serves as an engagement mechanism at the League of Arab States. So back to the Major Group for Children and Youth. The Major Group's systems in general are a product of the Earth Summit that happened in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. And the outcome document was called Agenda 21, which is a very, very important guiding document for all of us today on sustainable development and on a lot of climate-related topics. But in that document, member states have recognized the importance of having young people self-representing, engaging at intergovernmental meetings, not through their countries, but self-organized. And to make that happen, they recognized the major groups of society, which are 9 major groups, including children and youth, women, farmers, local authorities, NGOs, workers and trade unions. I don't want to forget any of them, so 9 of them. And later on in Rio Plus 20, so 20 years after 1992, 2012, we sat down again and we were, you know, following up on the process of Rio and what happened, and they were not implemented well enough, and they recognized that, you know, some are not recognized, like academia, like LGBTQ, like education, aging, volunteers, arts and culture, and then they decided to add major groups and other stakeholders. So what do we do at the Major Group for Children and Youth? We focus on 4 main topics, or 4 main aspects: advocacy, capacity building, knowledge, and action. So, advocacy, what does that mean? I was just talking about our engagement in the negotiations of the Sustainable Development Goals, and I was mentioning to a couple of you yesterday our role in the Habitat 3 conference, the Global Compact on Migration, and so on and so forth, of the intergovernmentally agreed agendas or platforms or frameworks that governments have adopted and started working on. Anything policy related at the UN, any process at the UN that is sustainable development related or youth related, MGCY has a seat at the table. Yesterday, there were conversations in the sessions about, is it good to have a seat at the table, or are we winning, are we losing? I'll get into all of that while I'm talking. So, post-2030, what's going to happen? Are we going to have another 15 years framework? Has the implementation of the 2030 agenda worked or not? I'm not going to answer these questions. I'm just leaving them for you to think about. But we have less than 5 years left for the 2030 agenda. And we must be honest about where we stand. Global inequalities remain. Climate change is accelerating. And systemic barriers still prevent real transformation. So what is the role of MGCY in all of this? MGCY has played a key role in institutionalizing youth engagement in global governance, but youth representation is still treated as an optional add-on rather than a necessity. Moving forward, MGCY wanted to focus on 3 main pillars. First, strengthening formal youth participation. I believe Patrick and Zan yesterday were talking about COP and the youth delegate programs. These are excellent examples, but if we mainstream them across the UN, to invite more member states to add youth delegate programs to their governments, that would be amazing. And also, more governments would add young people to the negotiator teams they have at COP to actually have our voices reflected. Second, integrating youth into crisis response. Young people are always the first responders in many humanitarian crises. Their role must be formally recognized. We keep saying that nothing without us is for us, so we have to practice what we preach. In the 2023 earthquake that happened in Turkey and Syria, 90% of the first responders were under the age of 35. Last, and I'm going to stop, youth accountability mechanisms. Governments and institutions must be held accountable for youth commitments. So MGCY is working on a global youth accountability framework to track the progress on youth inclusion and governance and development, because the current system they have right now of tracking youth engagement is just a scorecard where it's, checklist. If you have youth on your whatever, you just do a check, but it's not actually quantitative or qualitative. It's just, a checklist. So I'll stop here, and I'll be coming back later to a few more points. Thank you.